I rather agree. Now, you must be tolerant with me if my very brief remarks tonight have a slightly different tone from those of other last night conductors. After all, for you, this is a really joyous celebration of a wonderful series of concerts, and it should be fittingly celebrated. For me, number one is my very first last night. And I could never get a ticket. So, secondly, which is, well, here you must allow me a certain amount of sentiment and nostalgia. It's my last concert as chief conductor of the BBC Symphony. That's an important occasion. You know, I've been with them, I could almost say, through thick and thin. And it's worth thinking just for a moment about the nature of the relationship between the Great Symphony Orchestra and its regular conductor. It's something very special. You know, although they look quite nice, orchestra musicians are a hard-bitten lot. I always remember, at the start of my career, I had a trial date. I think it was with the London Philharmonic, but it was a very different orchestra then from the virtuoso group we know now. And I went, as a young conductor will, a little bit doubtful, to the first rehearsal, and my doubts were justified. Have you ever heard of faces carved in granite? Because that's what I faced, not the slightest flicker in what I was trying to rehearse. They played the notes, and that was it. And rather desperate, because I wanted a flicker of humanity somewhere, my eye roved around the orchestra and lighted on, I think it was a young double bass player whom I'd known in my chamber orchestra days. And he was bright soul and a good friend. So at a suitable moment, when there was a pause in the music, I flashed at him, "Hello, Charlie." And the whole thing changed. The orchestra said, "Oh, he's got a friend who's a musician." And the rehearsal went swimmingly from that point on. In fact, if I remember, I became chief conductor of the London Philharmonic at some point. I don't know. There's a certain danger for conductors here, which I sometimes stress, and that is, with great respect to my dear friends here, if the conductor or the artistic leader is too much one of the boys, you know what I mean, if he's seen at the local pub after the rehearsal and lowering a few pints, there's nothing wrong with that, I suppose. But there must be always a gulf fixed between the man who's carrying the can back at the end and earning all those gorgeous notices in newspapers, and the artists who produce the musical sounds. What I've learned from the BBC Symphony Orchestra, and I'm proud to say it, is that they willingly go along with what I want. I know that sounds a dictatorial attitude. It's not that at all. We have what is unique in my experience, an artistic rapport. We have something, I have only to look at the player and something happens to the phrasing, to the dynamic or something. I don't like conductors that give lectures all the time. I like to be very practical. The orchestra get used to the fact that at Maida Vale, loyally, BBC fashion, the rehearsal begins at 10:30 and finishes at 1:30. So, and then at 2:30 to 5:30. Well, anybody that comes to the hall, for most programs I do, at 4 o'clock is on a losing thing. The orchestra and I will have gone. It doesn't mean that we don't like to rehearse. A lot of music, this orchestra is incredibly adept at contemporary music, as sometimes you've had reason to suffer. But they are, of course, a great symphony orchestra that enjoy playing to an audience such as you, who respond to everything they do and have responded throughout this long and tiring season. I would love to go around the orchestra now and pick out, they'd be mostly Christian name terms, all my friends there who've deserved so well of you and whose playing you've learned to appreciate. But I give you now the BBC Symphony Orchestra. Let's stand them up. And how are you? I'd like to finish on a personal. I'll conduct that in a moment. There's a small personal statistic. You all love statistics, if I could say it. But there is an interesting one for you as promenaders. And that is that apart from the revered figure of Sir Adrian Boult, who was the founder of the BBC Symphony Orchestra, there's one other conductor that has equaled the length of time I've had the chief conductorship of this orchestra, and he occupied the throne, if I may call it that, for 7 years and 3 months. Now, I thought it would be interesting to compare. In that time, by the way, he sported 1,600 white carnations. So you know who it was. I speak of Sir Malcolm Sargent. So I looked up the records to see if I didn't come somewhere near his record. And I did. I've been chief conductor for 7 years and only 1.5 months. Wait a minute. I'm very cunning. I then said to Mr. Drummond, who was helping me do this statistic, but surely I was chief guest conductor for at least 2 years before that. He said, undoubtedly this must count. So if you want to get some phony figures, just get the chief conductor and the controller music together. That's all I'll say.